Good morning, everybody in West Grey. I will call the meeting to order. West Grey Council meeting, November the 29th at 9 a.m. Council members are all here this morning. The Deputy Mayor is joining us by Zoom with keeping his viral infections or cold infinities at home. And thank you to the technology. I guess we got to say that. Thanks to the technology that allows participation. So good morning, Tom, and good morning to the rest of the council. Could we please stand and we'll take a moment of reflection before we begin the business. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest from any of the council members? Seeing none, of course, it can be declared if it at any time you find that it arises. Delegations, number 4, presentations. I don't believe we have any this morning. Mr. Clerk, public meetings, there is none. Comment period. On our agenda, we have a comment period for anybody in attendance or online. Do we, Mr. Hewitt, Cody, do we have somebody there?
Members of the public wishing to participate in this portion of the meeting may do so in one of two ways. The first being, if you have joined us via phone line, you can press *9 to raise your hand, and that will let us know you would like to speak. Alternatively, if you have joined us via Zoom, you can raise your hand, typically located in the right-hand corner of your screen under the More Reactions icon. At this time, through you, Mr. Mayor, I am not seeing any members wishing to speak.
And I will say that in the room, I'm not seeing anybody that is wishing to speak at this time either. Okay, good. All right. Unfinished business from the previous meeting. I don't believe there is. There's none arising. Clerk. Adoption of the minutes, November 1st, council meeting. Minutes are before us. Anybody want to move adoption of those? Mr. Councillor Shea, Councillor Hutchison. Second that. Any questions, comments on the motion on the minutes? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Declare that carried. Thank you. On November the 1st, there was a special council meeting later in the afternoon, and the minutes were in the package. We need to pass those by resolution 2. Do we have a mover and a seconder of those minutes? Moved by Deputy Mayor Hutchison, seconded by Councillor Hutchison. Any questions or comments on that motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Declare that carried. Thank you. We want to deal with the committee and board reports. We'll pass all of those ones together. Look to you, Mr. Clerk.
Through Mayor to members of council. So typically the practice has been that we would go through each of the items and then pass a motion at the end to adopt all the minutes.
Okay. West Grey Public Library is in front of us. Do we have anyone that was in attendance at that meeting that wants to bring anything up, or is there any council members that have questions on that report or the minutes? Well, I take it that everybody's read the library report. Go ahead.
Hey, my one small comment is I noticed librarian Kim's name has two M's at one point in the minutes. Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay. If nothing else, then we'll go down to the Conservation Authority. There's certainly been, with the province's Bill 23, conservation authorities have been doing a public relations campaign. Any comments on these or on this, the minutes from September the 15th? Anything to update us on, Deputy Mayor? That was a no.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. No, we have nothing. We haven't met since that was our final meeting. As you can see in the correspondence, we did ask that the last board, we asked that they would come and do a delegation and presentation to the new term of council regarding the budget and any updates regarding the provincial changes that are going on, so we can get up to speed with what the current position of the provinces, if you will. Thank you.
Very good, thank you, Tom. If there's no other questions from any of the council members on the conservation, Saugeen Mobility and Regional Transit. Any comments on those minutes? Questions? Everything's going well? Very good. And finally, the minutes of the Durham Improvement Area Executive Meeting on October the 19th. BIA, or is it by any other name there, Councillor Hutchison?
Yeah, it should be Durham BI, Business Improvement Area. It's the minute says Durham Improvement Area. So anyways, just an update. There has been another meeting since this time, but I didn't get the minutes in before this meeting. You'll probably notice downtown before too long, actually later today, that there'll be some nutcrackers on the poles downtown, on the light poles, which are painted up sonotubes that look like nutcrackers, and they're going to be putting them on the poles downtown to decorate the downtown with the sort of a nutcracker theme. So that's coming up, and been working with the decorating committee to get things done up. We have our tree lighting on Thursday night, and I guess the parade, the firefighters put on a parade on Saturday around noon. So some things happening this week in Durham, previous to other areas that have already had their tree lighting sort of thing. So yeah, so just an update there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hutchison. Any other comments on the BIA report? Seeing none, then Mr. Clerk, we could pass a motion to receive the minutes.
Through you, Mayor, yes, the motion would be that the minutes of committees and boards be received for information purposes.
Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Forrester, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, doing good. Correspondence 10. There's a correspondence. The first one is a request for support for the repair of the Elmwood community sign. Any staff member want to make comment on this correspondence?
Through you, Mayor Eccles, and good morning, everyone. You'll see this request before you. I did inquire, following up to a councillor's inquiry, if Brockton was contributing, and I haven't heard back yet, so I have no further information than what's in front of you.
So is there a chance that this would be a budgetary item? In reading Shirley's letter, I don't, do anything with it this week?
Right,
Sorry, I think I.
there we go. Thank you. If council so chooses to support this, then yes, it would be appropriate to defer it to the 2023 budget process. So that's your option.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Deputy Mayor Hutchison.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Just to follow up with Madam CEO's comment. So if we made a motion to defer this, would that be also with the pending the correspondence or the response on the shared of this $3,000? Is that when we'll be going, or would that have to be tied into the motion?
I'm not sure that we really need a motion on it, Deputy Mayor. It's just direction to put it to our budget and correspondence with Brockton on their willingness to share in this, in the split city of Elmwood.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Eccles, for the clarity on it. I'm just concerned if we don't have any correspondence back, and all of a sudden it arrives on our budget line for when we're into our discussions. I guess is what I was trying to identify, but I'll leave it as it is. Thank you.
Yep, okay. Yeah, I think that would be the best is we'll just direction that we can move it to as a budget line item. 'Cause I'm pretty sure it was not in Director Mighton in the 2022 budget. No, so we can move it to there and then ask staff to connect with Brockton to see their appetite for a joint venture on this. Good. Councillor Townsend.
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor. Should we reach out to the Elmwood Chamber and just see what, I mean, 3,000 isn't a huge amount. And I know where the sign sits in Elmwood there. Is there any possibility of them getting any sponsorship? And what I mean by that is selling advertising to local businesses on the bottom part of that sign to cover the costs of replacing that sign. You see down in Wellington, and I'm thinking of the Crime Stoppers signs, for example, they have, sponsored by Young's Home Hardware or something on the bottom of them. So the business has supplied them with the supplies or whatever to put those signs up. Is there a possibility that the Elmwood Chamber of Commerce could approach some businesses in the area to sell some sponsorship and cover their costs that way? Just a thought.
We'll correspond. I think, Madam CEO, we can correspond back with Ms. Young, the Vice President of the Elmwood Chamber, and work with them on doing that. Councillor Hutchison.
Yeah, maybe a good time to do that would be when our new council rep meets with the board. It may be a good time to take it back and make that as a suggestion that they look at that. So might be an opportune time.
Keen on that, Councillor Forster? I think you may be our representative there. Okay, all right. Want to do a motion to defer it instead of just direction? Okay. Mr. Clerk is wanting to do this by motion, so I will defer to his expertise on this. A motion to defer the Elmwood Chamber of Commerce request for support for some backup information and to budget 2023 budget. That sound about right?
Through Mayor, yes, I had that council hereby defer the request to repair the Elmwood sign to the 2023 budget deliberations.
We've heard the motion. Do we have somebody to second that motion? Or first, move the motion before we seconded it. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Forster. Seconder? Deputy Mayor Hutchison. Okay. Any further questions or comments on the motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. All right. The second one is also coming from Elmwood, it's the Community Center Board. I believe Mr. Faulkner is still the chair of the Community Center Board. And they're requesting a capital, just a scope or change in the capital scope. Madam CEO, any other comments on this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Robinson. I received an email from Mr. Faulkner.
It's Mayor Eccles.
Or sorry, oh my goodness, my apologies. Old habits. Just to inform us that Brockton Council has approved the adjustment to the capital request. So they've gone to Brockton and that's been approved there.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Councillor Hutchison.
I'm just curious of the amount we're talking about here. So it was to replace some parking space or to add some improve parking spaces. And now they're putting it towards flooring. So I'm just curious of what kind of dollars are we talking, and is there enough in that budget to cover the flooring? I presume there is when they're looking like switching it over, but I'm just curious of dollars.
The total budget, I think, was 9,500 that we had for our share in the 2022 budget for the parking. That was half of it. I don't know what the cost that they're proposing. I don't think he mentions it.
So if the budget item, sorry, so the budget item comes in less than, it won't be an issue. I guess they'll have money left in their budget, but if it comes in over, they're gonna have to come back to us for, to put it into our next year's budget, I guess. Yeah, just a thought. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. I do note that Mr. Faulkner has indicated he has 2 quotes. He didn't indicate the price, but he knows the budget, so I'm sure that he's within that. I think we're good to go.
And in a comment with Mr. Faulkner on Sunday night when we were there doing the tree lighting, yeah, it wasn't going to, he was positive, or was in a positive sense that it wasn't going to be any increase. It's just a parallel. Councillor Shea.
I seem to recall that when we were reviewing the budget last year, there were a number of capital items on the list and they were prioritized, and some made it past the cut and some didn't. I'm just wondering, anybody recall if the floor was on that list? I don't recall this being an item. There were some windows, I think, maybe an entranceway, or I'm a little uncomfortable with the idea that because an amount has been allocated for a capital item to a certain department or group's budget, that if that project is not going to go forward, that they just assume that that money is theirs and can then be reallocated to a different capital project. The money was not given to them to do with as they wished. Money was given them to do a specific project. I would be happier if they brought this I think the floor project sounds like a good project. If the carpet is buckling and if it's AODA issue, then I think it should be considered under the next budget year. It's just a principle of people assuming that the money is theirs when it's really allocated for a specific project. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hutchison.
Yeah, so I think I'm just following up on the email that we received from our CAO, maybe, that they would have to have council approval to do a project that wasn't included in their budget to begin with. So I'm just curious if we defer to the 2023 budget, then the money that's left for parking, is it going to, I guess, sit there and then it could be used again for parking in 2023, or is it something, at that time in our budget deliberations that we switch it over to this project? So I'm just curious how it all works. Like, I mean, this is in the 2022 budget, so what would be the simplest way to make it work?
Director Carey?
If you don't want them to spend the dollars, you can also transfer any unused balance into reserve. We will hold that and can draw from it in the 2023 budget. If they were to do additional projects, then you can use that to draw for the 2023. If they were doing parking lot and flooring, then you could from the reserve for the portion of it.
Can I make a comment from the chair? I think one of the determining issues on this is, you had mentioned, Councillor Shea, was on the health and safety aspect of it with the carpet buckling and whatnot. And I'm going to make a jump that probably one of the biggest activities at the Elmwood Community Center is held in January with the Farmers Week. And somewhere between 1,000 over the 5-6 days, there'll be 1,000, maybe 1,200 people through there. So if this is a tripping issue and whatnot, have served on that board for a number of years. I think that having that in place and done before, because it's in January of 23, so I think it's an issue that we should take a look at and favorably go for that. And then it'll be, as you said, looking at the budget prospect for 2023, is the parking lot then going to be the one that try and get it done then? Okay, good. So we'll need a motion then, Mr. Clerk. You got one prepared there? Or did we have moved and seconded it already? Right, you've got the motion.
Through mayor to council. So the motion that I have drafted here is that council hereby approves the request from the Elmwood Community Center Board to reallocate 2022 Elmwood Community Center Board capital funds to repair flooring at the Elmwood Community Center.
Thank you, Mr. Eckens-Wyatt. Mover? Councillor Hutchison, seconder? Councillor Noon. Any further comments? Councillor Noon, Joyce?
Just for clarification with that motion, when you say the reallocation of the funds, should we mention that it's from the parking lot funds that were allocated in 2022, or isn't it a requirement?
I'll turn to you, Mr. Clerk.
Through mayor to councilor Noon, yes, we could further clarify the motion just to provide some additional scope as well.
Good point. Now we'll have that within the context. Okay. Nothing further then. Call the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. Got to tell me to turn on this mic at all times, Cody, please. Thank you. Grey County Farm Safety Association, representative and donation request. I didn't get a chance in last year's budget, and I should have done that research on that prior. Have we had that in as a donation to the Grey County Director Langton?
No, we did not.
They didn't get a donation? Have they had donations in the past from us?
2019 was the last year.
So it was cut at some point in time. Okay. Anything further on this? They're looking for a council representative, which I don't believe we've ever had that I can remember, and I'm not sure in the last 4 years. Certainly doesn't sound like it. But comments, Councillor Hutchison.
Yeah, I was going to suggest as far as the budget item or the request, I think we should defer that to 2023 budget. We are looking at changing the protocol in terms of how groups approach us in terms of asking for requests. So we have a policy on that now, which I don't believe we've got enforced yet, but we need to put that in place, I think, next year, so that we don't get all these continuous people coming to us and wanting funds partway through the year, and then we have to decide. And then this year, I think we overspent our budget, and we were looking for money to decide. So we put together a policy to say, this is the process that we're going to use going forward, and hopefully maybe stop the dribs and drabs that come in over the course of the year. So that would be my suggestion, is that we defer it until next year's budget, and we get that policy in place. The other thing I was going to suggest is I don't see it being a bad thing to have a representative on their farm safety. I mean, it is very important, and then obviously agriculture is very important to West Grey. My only suggestion would be, if we do that, it would be maybe one of our agricultural background counselors. Like we have a couple on our group here that maybe have some agricultural background, so I would suggest be one of them. Thank you.
Okay, any further comments? What is the main focus? Sorry, Councillor Noon.
Mayor Eccles, I concur with Councillor Hutchinson. I agree, because with the majority of West Grey being rural and farm community, that representation should be on that board. And yeah, moving forward, would it have to necessarily be a member of council, or maybe a member at large from the community that is very well educated and versed in that business in the farming community? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noon. Anyone else? Go ahead. Second.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. Maybe a member at large sort of thing, if we don't wish to put a council on there, just because we do have a lot of committees that we're covering now, and we need to talk more about that. But the other thing I wondered about is this group involved in the farm or the safety village? Like when they have the safety village and they put on their workshops, they have police and fire, but I don't know if the farm group has a booth there, which would be an excellent spot if they don't. Well,
Being somewhat involved in that, I don't believe that they do. I'm almost positive that they don't. And that was my question. What's the mandate of this group? I know it's to promote farm safety. It's an educational type group that's been in the area for years. Up until 2018, we did have a representative from West Grey resident sit on that. An individual from Bentinck Township for years has sat on that, and I don't know, just without getting hold of the Secretary McQueen on knowing why they were looking for somebody from the municipal council. I think it's more of a liaison, a lobby group in the area, more than it is a municipal delegated authority that we should be there. I think we could help them. The best way to help them is to find somebody that is, as Councillor Nuna said, is part of the farming community and a resident, more than having. I would stumble a little bit on the idea of us putting a counselor on there, because now becomes not a donation but a requirement for funding for this group, and I truly think it's more of a public relations, public education program than it is a municipal duty. Go ahead, Doug.
Oh, so my thought is, couple things. Either we could do it through our website, maybe ask for a call out to someone who would like to join this group to represent West Grey. We have a number of agriculture societies in our area. I'm surprised that they don't have a representative on there. Or the other thing is we approach Mr. McQueen and just say, maybe you should try the egg societies first and see if they have someone with interest. And if they don't have any luck that way, then maybe we could help them out or something. So maybe put it back onto them.
And maybe another one would be, I think there was a couple of us that were at a dinner on Saturday night at the Normanby Plowmen's Association, Bendicassa Plowmen's Association. You know, one of those might be a place to recruit members for this committee. And I get, you know, if I could progress, is it one of those things that how much of a life does it have? As farms have become bigger and with employees, health and safety, labor, education is a big thing. So how relevant is a small group like this? It's quite, I have no idea, you know. I think it's education is always good, no matter where you are, but how do you want to deal with it? Scott, Councilor Forster.
Could we offer our libraries for a location for them to offer training or schooling to our children or residents?
Madam CEO, think of that.
Through you, Mayor Eccles. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. I know the library is quite keen on offering partnerships, you know, working with other groups, so that could be something that the new board could consider. I'm just wondering if there's any appetite to invite Mr. McQueen to delegate and give us some more information on what he's looking for. And if he's doing a campaign for volunteers, we can share his postings rather than take the lead on it, because it really should come from this association.
Good advice. Can we send direction to council to send a letter back to correspondence back to Mr. McQueen at the Grey County Farm Safety Association and for a little bit more information on a face-to-face? That be agreeable? Heads are all bobbing. Good. Okay. And then we can do that. 10.2, items for information. Need a motion to give direction to staff?
So through you, Mayor, what I have is that in consideration of a request from the Grey County Farm Safety Association for a donation and a representative on the association, council directs staff to coordinate a delegation to council from the Grey County Farm Safety Association.
Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Townsend, seconded by Councillor Shea. Any further comments? Call the question. All those in favor indicate. Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. 10.2.1, items for information. I will apologize to the public out there. I'm not 100% on how Zoom meetings or these ones are handled. Do we go through these individually, or does council want to take and pull one of these out if there is any comments needed? It's in the package for information. Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Typically, when it's for information, council can just receive them unless there is one that council would like to discuss. I do have information from Mr. Hewlett, however, that someone did want to speak to 10.2.2, but was unable to log into the meeting today. So that is something that council can choose to entertain at this time or when we get to 10.2.2. But otherwise, you can just receive these for information. If there's any others, then you can pull those.
There was somebody from the public who wanted to in the comment period.
Yes, it appears it was Marion Radcliffe.
Through you, I can see that Ms. Radcliffe is online. If you would like to extend the latitude for her to speak at this time.
I'll make that, yes. If Ms. Radcliffe wants to speak, it'll be a comment period type thing. So 2 minutes or 120 seconds.
Ms.
Yes.
Radcliffe,
Is she there?
she is online. Looks like her mic is now live. If you can just state your name for the record and your comment.
Hello, it's Marion Radcliffe here, and thank you for the latitude. I had trouble getting logged in into the Zoom meeting and unfortunately missed the comments. Hello to Mayor Eccles, West Grey Council and staff. I wish to speak to items 10.2.2, Stronger Mayors Building Homes, and 10.2.11, Bill 23, More Homes Built Faster. It is my hope that this council will join the many other groups to express to our provincial government their opposition to these bills, will express concerns regarding the damage that these bills will do to the democratic process and loss of confidence in our government at all levels as the public loses any rights to involvement in the development of our communities, forcing current residents to pay development fees so the developers can only get richer. I heard this morning that Bill 23 had passed a law. That doesn't mean it still cannot be protested or appealed and changed or repealed. Bill 23 especially is objectionable in its complete disregard for the protection of our natural environment and resulting impact on global climate change and the loss of our precious and finite supply of farmlands. Go ahead and build these homes, but how do you intend to feed all the people? These bills, there's many other issues with this bill. Too many to list here. These bills, they talk about being faster and stronger, but nowhere do they prove to be smarter. Again, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Radcliffe. Appreciate your comments. Further to that, on the last council meeting, was there something that was put forward on this from council? Or am I dreaming that up?
Through mayor to council, yes, there was direction from council at the time. There were correspondence on the last agenda respecting Bill 3 specifically, and council directed staff to send a letter in support to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the municipalities that had passed the resolutions that made it onto our agenda, as well as the premier.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, for that. Yeah, I thought that it had been addressed. And I'm looking, do we need to do more on it? Like we've already, West Grey Council has already addressed, made her comments known. Councillor Hutchison.
I think at this point, it's going to be one of those we receive for information now, because we have, like you said, we've already made supported a resolution. There's a lot of talk about this, and as we read through here, like AMO is all over this for example, and I know most municipalities are not in support of it, and there's been lots of resolutions passed and sent forward. So given that we have a major conference coming up in January, which I think will be one of the hot items in that conference. And given that the government has passed the bill, but obviously, like Mr. Radcliffe had said, there's going to be opportunity to give our input even more so than what has already happened. So I'm not sure if we can really do much at this point, but other than to maybe receive it for information, because it is out there, it's ongoing. I don't know if it's really worth us sending out another resolution. We've already support one. There's two bills though in there, right? There's Bill 3 and there's Bill 23. So sort of they interlock and sort of so whatnot. So I think at this point we just received for information, but I just wanted to make comment too that I think we did skip past one item. That there was a Hanover EA thing in there that might have come before that item.
Yeah, well, I was looking for, it's not that we skipped over it, it was, it's all in here for information.
Yeah.
Is there any ones that council, as you have said, take a motion to receive? Or is there any ones you want to pull out and speak on it?
Right.
Yes, we got Ms. Ratcliffe in here on
Okay.
Bill 3 and Bill 23.
Yeah.
If you want to, Mr. Clerk.
Sorry.
No, one of us.
Through Mayor, so if council doesn't wish to act on any specific item within here, then I think what we could do is just have a motion to receive all correspondence not otherwise dealt with.
Did you want to pull something there, Councillor Hutchison?
Yes, I wanted to speak to the EA one regarding Hanover.
And go ahead.
So it mentions how to get involved, that that they're looking for, we can join the mailing list to get future up notices regarding this EA. And I just thought, because they are our neighbors and because we are looking at potentially someday down the road connecting with Hanover in terms of their development that's going to spill over into West Gray, that I think we should be aware of what's happening with this EA assessment that has to do with their expansion of their water treatment system, right? So, or sewage treatment, I forget what one was. So I think it's important that we at least get on the mailing list if we aren't already on it. And I forget, I think they're asking for input too. Any input received during this process will maintain on file. So just to make sure that staff's aware of it and on top of it, and if there might be opportunity to have some input.
Comments, Councillor Hutchison, any further comments on the 10.2.1? Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mayor Eccleston. Thank you, Councillor Hutchinson. I don't believe that I need a motion. I'll just follow up with staff to make sure that they're someone's watching this closely.
Okay. And if there's nothing else in there, I will say that 10.2.12, the Grey County Senior Planner Scott Taylor, Director of Planning, I guess is what his title is now, quite a extensive report on Bill 23 there. Some great information. It's certainly going to be how it comes out. We'll need a motion then to receive 10.1.2.1 to 10.2.12 for information to receive. Somebody make that motion? Councillor Noon, seconder. Councillor Hutchison, comment on the motion.
Yes, I still, so we're doing down to 10.2. How far are we going down here on this?
10.2.12.
Okay, so there's a lot in there, and so I made some comments. So the one about County of Bruce official plan, that was interesting. There's a lot in there. That's a big item, and I felt bad in some ways for our new council because there's a lot of technical jargon in that document, which makes a bit of a tough read right off the bat. But I'm sort of curious why it's in there, other than I guess it is there for information. It is, there's a lot of information we have. It's interesting, it's Bruce County and we're not in Bruce County, but we do have a Grey County document, which is probably very similar. Our official plan is very similar to this one. I just thought when I read through it, I thought, well, some of the things that they are talking about in terms of primary and secondary settlements and expansion and how that works with boundaries and whatnot, that there is some overlap to what we're dealing with. So I guess it's good in that ways, but there, like I said, it is a lot of information in there. And I guess it's interesting to see how Bruce County is growing, but we're really not in Bruce County. So it's not totally for us, but it's good to know, I guess, and put it that way. So yeah, but there was a lot there for sure.
Well, in Grey County, I think we share as big a border with Bruce County as anyone does. And with predominantly western winds, most of our weather comes from Bruce County. We do send them the sun in the morning because it does rise here. They wouldn't have any light if it didn't come from West Grey. So thanks for those comments, Doug. Any other on the motion that's on the floor? Ask for the vote. All those in favor of receiving for information? Any opposed? Carried. All right. Doing pretty good. Staff reports. Clerk, you have the first one on a calendar of council meetings and exciting holidays and for the decoration.
Thank you, Miracles. On an annual basis, council approves the council meeting calendar for the following year. The 2023 calendar is modeled on council generally meeting on the first and third Tuesday monthly, with the first council meeting of the month being held at 9 a.m. and the second council meeting of the month being held at 6 p.m. Staff is recommending that Committee of Adjustment hearings be scheduled on the first Tuesday monthly at 2 p.m. after the daytime council meeting, and that public meetings be scheduled for the third Tuesday monthly at 2 p.m. before the evening council meeting. Having public meetings and Committee of Adjustment hearings on the same day as a council meeting will allow council to conduct business on the same day and will give staff more time to carry out tasks, projects, and action items as directed by council. And with that, the recommendation is that council approve the 2023 calendar as attached to the report.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Any comments? Any changes? Councillor Noon. Thanks, Doug.
I just like to, Mayor Eccles, I'd like to comment that on the second Tuesday of the meetings for council for the planning and zoning meetings, if maybe perhaps we could have them at 4 o'clock versus 2, only just because it's closer to our evening meeting. Unless they're going to be done remotely and not in-house. I just thought then we have the opportunity not going back and forth, having that lapse of time. Just a suggestion.
Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles, and thank you, Councillor, for that suggestion. We did debate about the start time for that afternoon meeting. The challenge that we have is staff are in the building through the day, and we wanted to build in a break between the two meetings before they start the evening session. So we thought if we start at 2, they typically run for an hour and a bit, and that gives people time to wind down their day and begin their evening meeting. So if 2 o'clock suits, we prefer that time. Thank you.
And those evening meetings, council meetings would be remote. Yeah. Okay. Anything else on the calendar? Councillor Hutchison.
I'm just curious where the public meetings, or maybe it's in here, I don't know, if we have sometimes we have public meetings regarding planning, but they're not scheduled, right? So that would be come up, or are they, is it on there? Sorry.
Through Mayor to Council. So as of right now, there are no public meetings that are scheduled. When a meeting is required, it will be scheduled and notice will be sent out to the public and posted on the municipality's website to inform the public of the meeting at the time.
I'm just thinking in terms of the past, we usually tried to schedule those public meetings on a Tuesday, but that's going to be a bit challenging. I guess there are Tuesdays that we're not going to have. There are going to be Tuesdays available, I guess, between council and Committee of Adjustment. There'll be other Tuesdays there. So it's a good chance that those public meetings would be Tuesday. Is that what we're thinking? Probably. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Through Mayor, yes, just to clarify further. So the public meeting would take place on the third Tuesday of the month prior to the evening council meeting.
All right. Any other comments on the wonderfully colored calendar that our clerk has presented us with? Deputy Mayor Hutchison.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Just a general question. If we have a relatively short agenda on a day where we have both council and adjustments, which is at 2 o'clock, and again, this is going to be similar to Councillor Noon's question. So hypothetically, we're wrapped up by 11 o'clock. We're going to be sitting around till 2. So do we have that option, if that is the case, to do adjustments electronically, or what kind of is the plan? I'm just curious about that. And on the other hand of that, we're working with the existing procedural bylaw right now, and that's to say that we would be completed our council meetings, and if the procedural bylaw is changed by this new term, are we going to run into the council meetings could be longer? Are we going to run into any complications with that? So I guess it's kind of a double question there. Thank you.
Through Mayor to Council. So respecting the timing of the Committee of Adjustment hearing, it is a statutory public hearing. Notice has to be sent with the time prescribed on that. So I don't really think there's any latitude that we would have there to bump that meeting up without confusing the public. So I don't think that would really be an option. Respecting the timing of the meeting with the procedural bylaw, if a public meeting were scheduled, it would be a separate standalone meeting from a council meeting. So it wouldn't be part of that council meeting timing that would take place earlier or later in the day.
Okay, a follow-up, Mayor Eccles, to the clerk, please. And thank you very much, Clerk Eckenswiller. Again, the question is, it's just, if council's done at 11, are we going to have the electronic option for a Committee of Adjustments, or do we all need to sit around there? Because, some of us travel a little bit further. So we leave, again, if we left at 11, we got to be back at 2, or how are we going to handle that? And it's just more curious, and it's more of the logistics on it, trying to organize our days as well. Thank you.
Through Mayor to Council and Madam CEO, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this would function the same as a hybrid meeting. So if a member wanted to join virtually, they would be permitted to do so.
It's fine. Thank you, Mayor Eccles and Clerk Eckenswiller.
Okay. Kind of a little learning curve, and we'll make it work. We as elected officials are very malleable, apparently. Councillor Hutchison. Doug.
Just a question about the calendar. Since we're using Outlook, it'll be populated in the Outlook calendar, right? Is that how that works? So all these dates will come up automatically on that calendar. I don't personally use that calendar, but so I have to put it in by hand. But it does populate. I think I don't know if we do it for the year, or I don't know how that works. Would you like to comment on that?
Through you, Mayor Eccles. Yes, I recall that we did send meeting invites as calendar holds. I don't recall if we did that last year. I think I got them, but that staff person is no longer here. So if this passes, we can certainly send out calendar invites to your Outlook, and then at least you got them. You will, if everyone, here's my plug, if you subscribe to news and notices, you'll also get the notification from our website when the agenda is published.
You still have that big fridge door at the house? Yeah. It's a printed off. Thank you, Councillor Tom.
Problem is I'm colorblind, so this calendar is no good to me. Accessibility, isn't there something about accessibility there?
Okay, all right. Another duty for Mary. Do we have a motion to accept the calendar as presented? With the link? Yes, getting on to that. Councillor Townsend is going to move that. Seconder? Councillor Forrester. Any further comments on the calendar 2023 West Grey Council meeting calendar? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. All right. Council appointment to agencies. Mr. Eckensweiler, Mr. Clerk, another one of yours.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Council member appointments are made once per term of council and coincide with the term of council. With a new term of council comes a requirement to appoint council members to local and external agencies, boards, and committees. In consultation with the mayor and deputy mayor, council appointments have been identified as outlined in the recommendation section of this staff report, save and except the Committee of Adjustment. As per Section 44 of the Planning Act, members of the Committee of Adjustment are to be appointed by bylaw. Members of the Committee of Adjustment who are council members shall be appointed annually. In consultation with the mayor, staff is recommending that the Committee of Adjustment be made up of all members of council. With that, the recommendation is that council appoint council members to agencies, boards, and committees as outlined in the report, and that council consider bylaw 92-2022 to appoint members to the Committee of Adjustment during the bylaw portion of this meeting.
Very good. Could we have a motion to get this onto the floor and any discussion? Moved by Councillor Hutchison. Seconder, Councillor Noon. Any questions, comments on the appointments? Councillor Hutchison. Doug?
Yeah, I just note that there's some missing and the mayor and I did have a discussion on this, so but I'm not sure where we're going with it and totally. First of all, the first one I'm think we're missing there is economic development. Last term we had 3 councils on that. I don't know if we need to have 3, but we had 3. I'm just curious, is that not part of the ones that gets appointed at this time? Economic development.
Madam CEO.
Through miracles. To Councillor Hutchinson, all we're looking to do right now is to appoint the council appointees to boards and agencies and committees, not advisory committees. And economic development was an advisory committee of council. We'd like to deal with those later because there may be citizen appointments at that time as well.
Yeah, so that's fine. So some of the ones that previously I was on and I'm still acting on, like trails and gardens and green spaces, which has to sort of move forward. So I presume we just carry on until we get new appointees on that sort of thing.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Actually, the committees that were part of the last term of council, they concluded at the end of that term of council. So I know that there's still some leftover work. Staff have been connected with those committees as well. So until we appoint or determine the makeup of those advisory committees, there isn't really an option for meetings. So they can just, if there's something they need, they can connect with me and I'll delegate to staff as required.
That's correct. We've been sort of acting as a working committee, I guess, in terms of, we haven't really been meeting, but because there are things that have to be done at this time of year, we've been carrying on sort of thing. So that's fine. So it'll be a later date for that. Thank you.
Councillor Shea. Okay.
About the Committee of Adjustment, last term, we had some discussion about this. I think we started the term with the understanding from our then clerk that the entire council was required. If you're going to have any councillors on the Committee of Adjustment, you had to have the entire council. And then we got a new clerk and we were advised that that was not the same understanding of the regulation, and that there were options for the composition of this committee, including the committee could consist of a number of non-councillors, like I believe 3 members of the public could constitute this committee. And so we had some discussion about how big this committee should be and whether it should be councillors or members of the public. And I think we ended up with 5 councillors, excluding myself and one other. So I was just wondering if the clerk could explain to me one more time what the requirements are for populating this committee.
Through mayor to council. So the requirements are just that the members be appointed by bylaw. There's no requirement that the composition of the committee be council members or public members. It's really at council's will, how that makeup is determined. So if it's council's wish for it to be all members of council, then certainly that's permitted. And if not, then that would be fine as well. There's no requirement that it be all of council or none of council. It's just whatever council's wish is.
Thank you. Then I would like to suggest that perhaps members of this council who are interested in serving on that committee should put themselves forward for consideration, and that only members who want to be on this committee be appointed to it.
The interesting thing about Committee of Adjustment, from my understanding, and I don't believe it's changed a whole lot, is that it's a planning process, that those planning applications and adjustment applications come through that committee and are made as a recommendation to council. The council has to approve those by bylaw and or by resolution to approve the actions of the application, but they must be heard by the committee. It's one of those strange ones that comes through the Municipal Act. So hence, anything that comes through there comes to council. And I guess my biggest concern is any of the questions that come through the committee, and we'll come back to council. If all council members are there, it would certainly streamline and be a lot less redundant if all the council members were there to hear it first time from the applicant on those processes. I guess if an individual councillor doesn't feel that they have to gather that information or would like to delegate that to the rest of the council, I can see that, but that is why I've always felt that the Committee of Adjustment being all of council members, because it can't be council, because council is the one that passes the bylaws and or resolutions, as I said, on a recommendation from the committee. So if all of council's there, you've got the information ahead of time. It's not a redundancy type of process then. Go ahead.
So I thought that Committee of Adjustment did actually have decision-making authority, and in some cases. And one of the things that I did note was that because most of council sits on Committee of Adjustment, when issues come, is this Committee of Adjustment or is this planning? When the issues do come to council for final approval, the way it happens in the public's eyes on the agenda is an item comes up and it says, bylaw number something something 71 is coming forward on such and such a property, all in favor, and we vote and we say all in favor. And for the public, they're just saying, what just happened? There was no staff report. There was no indication of what the impact of this bylaw is going to be. And so having a member or two or three or however many who aren't on the Committee of Adjustment being at that council meeting means that they get to stand up and say, wait a sec, could somebody just recap what this bylaw is going to do? And speaking more for the public's point of view, I've always felt this process was a little opaque, and I would like to find a way to make it smoother and more open and more welcoming to public participation. I don't know if changing the composition of the committee is the way to do that, but these are just some thoughts I have on the Committee of Adjustment process.
Planner Laura Lee has joined us virtually. Laura Lee, any explanation, please?
Yes, thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to make a point of clarification, if I may. The Committee of Adjustment does have decision-making powers, and I think the discussion has kind of moved sideways to the difference between a public meeting for a zoning bylaw, which is not under the Committee of Adjustment, The Committee of Adjustment has the power to grant a minor variance without permission from council and has the power to provide for consent/severance without the permission of council. Those are the decision-making powers that are granted to a Committee of Adjustment through resolution by council to enact that committee. Public meetings are often required. Conditions of consent severance would be possibly for a zoning amendment. That's where a public meeting through council would be heard, but it would be a requirement from a condition of consent that had possibly been determined provisionally by the Committee of Adjustment. So just to explain the consent process as simplistically as I can, essentially, there are several conditions. If it's provided provisional consent by Committee of Adjustment, a zoning bylaw amendment, an entrance permit, things of those nature would be conditions which have to go through either through staff or through council through the zoning amendment process, which is separate from the powers of the Committee of Adjustment. The Planning Act grants those powers to Committee of Adjustment separately from zoning amendment matters through council. I just wanted to make that point of clarity to hopefully ease some confusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Planner Spencer. Appreciate that. What's the will? They're here in front of us on the Committee of Adjustment. I think that if I could from the chair, the Committee of Adjustment certainly has delegated great authority. And to your point, Councillor Shea, how much of that authority do we want to delegate? The decisions are of council. So do we delegate that to 3 members, 5 members of council? Or should all of council have that input and make those decisions? I guess that's where I'm going.
It was explained to me one time that the reason the Committee of Adjustment has separate decision-making authority and perhaps shouldn't be identical to council is that they are, by the name adjustment, overriding previous council decisions. So council makes a decision that, a shed can't be, to the side of the building, has to be behind the building. And the Committee of Adjustment looks at it and says, in this one case, it makes perfect sense to have the shed be beside the building instead of behind the building. And so they make that decision, which overrides a decision the council made that said that, sheds have to be behind buildings. So if council has if you put the entire council on that committee, council is basically just giving itself permission to override its own decisions. It just seems sort of sloppy, and I'm not sure that the regulation is designed that way. I would be interested to know how our neighbors do it, or what the other best practices are. Is if everyone has just traditionally has entire councils being members of the Committee of Adjustment, I'm happy to do it. I'm not trying to shirk work here or anything like that. I'm just trying to make sure that we're doing this the best way possible. And it's a confusing and convoluted process. So if council wants to go ahead and pass this as it is now, I would be fine with that. I wouldn't mind getting some feedback perhaps in the future from the planner or clerk, just to how, what other best practices are, how other municipalities are dealing with this. Maybe that can be a future discussion. We don't have to get too bogged down right now. Thank you.
Councillor Hutchison? Doug?
Just to weigh in on, I do think that that by having everyone there, that everybody's on board in terms of, like Councillor Shea said, when the bylaw comes back to council, that everybody understands the background behind it and why it's there. But I also know that in some municipalities, they don't have council as part of their planning committee. Their planning committee could be made up of the general public. They may have representation from council, but I think we're a little bit unique when we do have all council on the planning board. But given that being said, I do find that when the items come to our agenda, even though I've been on that committee and it's come forward, I do sometimes think it's good to have a little bit more information on that item when it comes to our agenda, because even sometimes it might be a month away or whatever, depending on when we hit that item. So it's good to have a refresher, and for the general public, it's good to know, what is this all about? Again, in some cases, just minor variances and whatnot, which is really not a big issue and shouldn't take, a lot of time to go through, and the committee of adjustment can pass those without council input. But yeah, I just think for education, it's good that everyone's there, and it streamlines it further down. But I do think sometimes on our agenda that it's nice to have a little bit more information, like a map or some kind of information that the general public understands. Plus, it gives council a little bit of a refresher of what was passed in that meeting. So those are just food for thought, just some items to throw out there.
Deputy Mayor Hutchison. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. So yes, just listening to the conversation here, I think, in the past 4 years, what I found happened is we had wholesome discussions at Committee of Adjustments, and then the same questions that we did all that work, and we have staff time in there, we have ourselves, and there was a lot of resources there. And then when we did get to the council part, and I think Councillor Hutchison has made a good suggestion, is maybe some of the paperwork or anything, that correspondence that follows through, so that's a refresher. But to go back and revisit everything we've had a very detailed discussion around at the Committee of Adjustments to make that decision to get it to council, I think repeating all that, and I think Mayor Eccles, you said, is we're trying to streamline this and not have duplication, because we do want to move the business of the corporation forward. So I think that's one of the challenges, and by your recommendation of having everyone there, we're all very knowledgeable. And if the correspondence does follow through, I don't think we have to have a huge detailed discussion at council. We've done the appropriate work behind the scenes to get it to that part of decision making. So I see Councillor Shea, I understand it. We did work with 5, as he said, and it was very effective. It's just, I think the correspondence following through. So maybe if a couple of council members were not participating, they would have that information there, and we could certainly get the decision done at the council level quicker. Thank you.
Okay. Just from my understanding, but I believe the Committee of Adjustment is a public meeting. Public are always allowed to be at that meeting, as they are at any council meeting. So, and I think there's some of the confusion of having to have it here at council. If it's something that an individual is certainly interested in at a Committee of Adjustment, whether it's your neighbor applying for, as you had mentioned, Councillor Shea, a shed, side yard setback reduction or something of that nature, that wouldn't be the spot for those individuals to participate in that discussion. So it is public for them, for the public to be out there and knowing. With that, Laura Lee, you're back with us. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a point of clarification. So reports often for, conditions of consent that go through the public meeting process. You will notice in the past, to alleviate confusion, I have put the entire italicized report that went to the Committee of Adjustment into the report for the public meeting with respect to zoning amendments, which is providing the information that the Committee of Adjustment would have had in making their decision. Just to provide a further point of clarity, anything related to a minor variance approval from Committee of Adjustment does not require ratification by council. So the only matters that would be seen would be the matters of a zoning amendment that is required as a condition of consent. I just wanted to make that point of clarity for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Director Spencer. With that discussion, is there anyone that wants to move? We haven't moved, we haven't seconded. Had good discussion on it. We ready to call the vote on this? Jeff? All those in favor of the appointments bylaw? Any opposed? Declare that carried. Very good. Thank you, Jamie. Brings us down to 11.2, Director of Finance Treasurer report. Ms. Mighton.
No, I thought you were gonna say something.
You
just
turned your mic
paused.
on. I'm waiting for you to say something. Go ahead. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Hanover has approached us to vary the conditions of our current agreement to accept a lower CPI adjustment compared to what our bylaw says. So I'm just seeking council approval to accept the 2% annual increase in our cost for Hanover's fire service. Works out to about just over $1,200 for our 2023 budget.
Thank you, Carrie. Somebody want to move acceptance of that? Move by Councillor Townsend, seconder. Deputy Mayor Hutchison. Any further discussion, comments? Councillor Hutchison. Doug?
I think it's great that they can come in at 2%. Look forward to that in our budget deliberations if everybody comes in at 2%, but
That's a question for a lot of these directors.
So, yeah, given that inflation and the cost of living, like looking at CPI is 7%. So, you know, I think it's great, but I don't know whether we can continue to do that. But anyways, in this case, hopefully our inflation, our cost of living will come down as the year goes on, and we'll be able to keep that in mind in future budget deliberations. But 2% is a nice number.
-2 would be a perfect number, but this is nice. That's fine. We have that motion moved. Councillor Noon, sorry.
It's just, Mayor Eccles, pardon me. It's just some food for thought, basically, that are we going to set a precedence, you know, one at 2% and then someone else comes in at, you know, 3% and so on and so on, that we have to be very cautious. I mean, this is great because they're lowering it, they're not increasing it, but just we have to keep in mind that we try to keep everything on an equal when we're looking at our 2023 budget. Thank you.
Good point. It's not about what staff is going to put in there. It's what, as a council, we're going to request that they do, that where the budget is going to go. Projects that we're thinking about, what our needs are and what our wants will be, that might drive Director Mighton home with a headache. Okay. Got this one moved. To accept that. Any other questions or comments on the fire agreement with Hanover? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Carrie. Interim Director of Public Works Infrastructure. As a report, do you want to give us any further information on that? Interim Director Glacier. You need a mic.
If I may offer your worship, I would like to have the author of the report present to council, Ms. Sarah Hansen, who's our environmental capital projects officer. I'd like her to lead the report if that's okay.
Absolutely great. Ms. Hanson. Sarah, floor is yours.
Thank you, and through you. So a closure report was submitted to the Ministry of Environment back in 2015 by our engineering consultants, GM Blue Plan. We got around to completing, we had windrows of ground waste that were currently on site. We did truck those up on top, and we had clay that was already stockpiled there. So we just put that in its final placement. That was completed in November this month. What we are asking for is to have some funds transferred from the landfill reserve to cover the cost of the work that was completed.
Okay. Any further or any questions or clarification on what is being requested? So we'll need a motion to transfer. My understanding is to transfer from the West Gray landfill reserve to the Normanby, to do the Normanby site.
Yes, Your Worship, it's actually coming out of the Normanby landfill reserves to pay for that, but it wasn't a budgeted item under 2023 or apologize, 2022. And that's why we're coming to council to request that that money be transferred from reserve into operation. So we can look after the costs of the landfill closure that was completed.
Do you have further comment? Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Mayor Eccles, just to clarify. So the recommendation is that in consideration of staff report Normanby landfill closure, council directs staff to transfer up to 17,531 from landfill reserves to the operating budget for the final placement of ground waste and clay.
Okay. So it's in the Normanby landfill, so it's just a transfer out of the Normanby landfill. Because it's, I guess my confusion, and I apologize for that, it's the Normanby landfill from the West Gray landfill, but they're both the same is what you're telling me. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any further clarification or questions on this one? Councilor Hutchison.
Maybe not to muddy the water, but going back to 2015, we asked for a plan for closure, but did council actually vote to close Normanby? Did we actually have a vote on that? Because I don't remember that if we did.
Thank you, and through you. This is not something that would have been brought to council for a vote. This is a requirement of the ministry once you meet capacity at a landfill. And once it is full and no more space is left, it must be capped and closed. The landfill itself, though, is just the portion that we are closing. The site itself is not closed per se. It could still operate as a transfer facility.
Okay with that? Go ahead.
So, but at this point, Normanby is closed, not acting as a transfer station. So that's something in the future we need to decide on. Is that correct, Director?
Yeah, through you, Your Worship, that is correct. If I recall, on the previous council, there was a report brought to the previous council back in, regardless, the previous council that acknowledged that the landfill was at capacity and would require closure. You are correct that a report, or there was never any resolution from council to close the landfill, but the active part of the landfill is closed. So that is correct. There has to be a resolution in the future to consider closing Normanby. And one of the reasonings for that, if I may offer, we are struggling with landfill staff, and we simply can't afford or to accommodate the staffing requirements that are needed for the Normanby landfill to operate it.
Yeah, okay, so I think there's an opportunity for discussion in the future regarding how we go about that. So I was just curious because I didn't think we formally closed it, but I can understand that they won't be receiving any more waste to be buried, is what we're basically saying, but it could possibly be a transfer station if we could make that work in budget wise in the future, but that's something we're gonna have to discuss as a council. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was my thought and question too. At this point, the way I understand it, if the world turns around and we can find staff and as a council, we can find money, we could still have the opportunity of putting a transfer station in Normanby at this time in a perfect world.
Councillor New, Joyce?
To my, Mayor Eccles, to my understanding, the current Normanby landfill site is being run currently as a transfer station, that it had reached its capacity. It was full. We could no longer put any more to the mound. And so as a transfer, the volumes brought in currently, when it was being still in operation, when we had staff, the contents of garbage and recycling, basically what was done at the curbside was taken in, and then it's taken then from the bins are then transferred to Ventic. So currently that operation isn't going because we don't have staff, but currently the site still is a transfer station. Thank you.
Okay, good discussion on that and clarification. I think the one thing about it is no matter how many resolutions you put forward to close a landfill, you're never really done with it. It's got to be monitored, Sarah, for what did Buzz Lightyear say? From here to infinity and beyond? Yeah, the ministry has that restriction on you, so yeah, it won't, we can close it as far as taking in garbage, but we can never dispose of it, of the responsibility for it. All right, so there's a motion. Did I mover and seconder for that one yet? Thank you, Jamie. Need a mover and a seconder to transfer the funding out of the capital closure reserve into the operations of capping the Normanby landfill. Have a mover for that. Moved by Councillor New, seconder, Deputy Mayor Hutchison. Any further questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. Thank you very much, Sarah and Brent. And we're down to next. Next staff report, community services, recreation. Mr. Hewitt. I think this one's yours. Any comments or further on this one?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, a fairly straightforward report in front of council currently. We were passed an inquiry from the Newstead Lions. They have been given or donated a number of Christmas displays from a resident of Newstead, I believe, and they would like permission to put them on display at the Newstead Arena and Ball Diamonds.
And I guess they're just looking for us to give them permission to place them there at their peril or however
exactly
we want to put it. Any questions on it? Councillor Hutchison, go ahead, Doug.
So I'm not exactly sure of what the displays are, but I presume there would be some hydro expense for some of the lighting of these displays, I'm presuming.
Sorry.
I am under the same assumption.
I think it's a great idea, supportive of it. I just think it's too bad in some ways that we couldn't get some of these displays maybe downtown to encourage people to drive through Newstead and visit the businesses, or even when we look at their park on the north end of town, is it called the Lions Park? Lions Park. Yeah, in some ways it would have been nice there when they have a drive around that you could have maybe even used that, and then you could do a drive through to look at displays, which some places do. They have a drive through Christmas display like Home Sound and that type of thing. So I think this is great, and maybe it's an opportunity to expand or make some changes in the future. But I think the idea is good. Thank you.
But it isn't going to be at Newstead at the hall on the ball diamonds. And if you're aware of Newstead on a Friday night, there's thousands of people in the arena roller skating, so it'll be visible quite a lot. I mean, they certainly do have a lot of activity in and around the arena, so it's going to be in a spot of good visibility. Okay, any further comments on this one? And it is our understanding the liability is being held by the Lions Club for having this there. Correct. Thank you, Mr. Hewitt. I need a motion then to allow the Newstead Lions to put this up. Councillor Forrester, seconder. Councillor Deputy Mayor Hutchison. Thank you, Tom. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay. That's it for staff reports. Madam CEO, thank you. Brings us down then to one that I'm not quite familiar with, and I do apologize for some of my bumbling here. It's been a few years since I've chaired a meeting, so hopefully I'll meet your expectations here at the table and out there. Questions. In accordance with the West Grade procedural bylaw, members may request clarification or updates on previous agenda items. Councillor Joyce.
Mayor Eccles, this question is directed for our clerk. And I hope I'm in the right content for this, but under 11.3.1, where it mentions Norby landfill closure, I wonder if that's where the misunderstanding, having the word closure there. I'm wondering if it shouldn't have been maybe Norby landfill transfer of reserves, like for, because it's operate, like it's like a capital being still being done at that particular site, where closure makes it look like we're trying to close the landfill site, and that's not our intent at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles, and to you, Councillor Noon. I understand you're looking for a little bit of a different level of clarity, perhaps, for the general public reading this, but we are in fact closed. That landfill operation as an active landfill is closed, and the transfer of funds is to complete that process. And as you had pointed out, and a couple of your colleagues, operating as a transfer station is still a viable option because the property will remain open, but the actual active site is what's being closed.
I guess if you wanted anything, we could have put capping in there, I guess, the closure capping, but yeah, hopefully that will be how the message is received out there. Okay. Any other comments? Clarification? Okay, down to bylaws. Mr. Clerk. Oh, you can't participate in this one. That's a conflict for you. Sorry. Yeah. We have an appointment, obviously an appointment bylaw here to appoint our clerk. I think you've got past part of the procedure and doing okay. So we're going to, it's a housekeeping more than anything that wasn't done with the changeover in council. So how would you like to proceed? Need somebody to move the motion? We'll do Doug and Doug, Counselor Hutchison, Counselor Townsend. Move the appointment of Jamie Eckensweiler as the clerk for the municipality of West Gray. And that bylaw 85/2022 is hereby repealed. Questions or comments on the motion? Counselor Hutchison.
Yeah, I guess it would be really awkward if we voted against this, but
You're going to find some of that during the next 4 years.
But
Yes.
I guess given that the trial period is going to end, I'd be happy to vote Jamie in for this position, but just a thought there.
Thanks for stating the obvious. Okay. Any further comments on this appointment bylaw? I'll call the question and all those in favor. Any opposed? That's carried. You got the 7 votes that mattered. Bylaw 93, 2022, to appoint a deputy fire chief for the municipality of West Gray. This one is for to appoint Sean Edwards to the deputy fire chief for the Corporation of West Gray. And in the absence of the fire chief, shall be the acting fire chief. I have a mover for this motion. Get it on the floor. Moved by Councillor Shea, seconded by Councillor Noon. Any questions or comments on the motion? Chief, he's gone through the trial period pretty well. Very good. Been a longtime member of the community, so yes, Sean, very well known. Any other further comments on the motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Hutchison.
I was just going to comment that it's nice to see that we're succession planning, because I think we need to do more of that in the future. So it's great, and I think Sean's going to be a great member of our team. So congratulations and welcome.
Deputy Mayor Hutchison? No?
I
Comments?
was getting ready to vote there, Mayor Eccles, so.
Oh, just one last comment to Councillor Hutchison. We haven't voted yet. All those in favor? Any opposed? That was unanimous. Welcome aboard, Sean. Going to be a pleasure working with you. And certainly, welcome aboard, Jamie. It's going to be a pleasure working with you as well, too. We know that. Bylaw number 94, 2022. Bylaw for to enact and regulate the West Gray Fire. We have a mover and a seconder to put this one on the floor. Moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hutchison. Any questions or comments on this? Councillor Townsend on the bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question, and maybe it's a wording thing and just the way it's worded in there. But on so it'd be page 124 of the of our minutes, item 3, where it says, in addition to fire chief, council shall appoint a deputy chief for each station. So is that it? Just the way I read it, it sounded like we were having a deputy chief for each station, but it's I think it's just a wording thing that the chief and the deputy chief will be chief and deputy chief at each station, I think.
I'm going to Chief Schwartz, please.
Yeah, so we already have a deputy chief at each station. They're volunteer chiefs, and they look after the station itself and we look after the administration in our office. If they get a call in the middle of the night or whatever, there has to be a team leader at each station. So we named them years ago deputies. We're just gonna leave them as deputies. So it's either deputy or station chief, but for now, deputy's fine.
That's good clarification. Thank you. Any other comments on the bylaw? Motion on the floor. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Declare that carried. Doing pretty good. Bylaw 95. There's a bylaw to appoint members of council to the Committee of Adjustment, Minor Variance and Consent Granting Authority. Do we have a mover and a seconder to put this one on the floor? Deputy Mayor Hutchison, Councillor Townsend. Bylaws, the motion is on the floor. Any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Bylaw number 96, confirming of the proceedings of council. Mover? Moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by Councillor Hutchison. Confirm the proceedings of council, the council meeting of November 29th, 2022. Any questions on this? Call the question. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Thank you. New business. This is a new council, so it's all new business to us. Thank you very much. All right. Seeing none coming forward, announcements. Anyone have any announcements and or greetings? Goodwill. Councillor Hutchison.
Yeah, I think I already mentioned it, but just to, again, the tree lighting in Durham is, I can't remember, it's 6 or 6:30 this Thursday. Normally it's a Wednesday, but this year we switched it to the Thursday. It's usually the first Wednesday of the month, but we switched it to Thursday because the art gallery is going to host anyone who wants to go back there after the tree lighting for hot chocolate and treats or things. So I believe the sauntering band is maybe going to lead them across the bridgeway, the walkway bridge back to the art gallery after, if anyone wants to join them there. And also Ayton has had their tree lighting, and we did that on Friday night, right? And then I didn't make the Elmwood one. I had a Christmas conflict, but I believe some people made it to that one. So it's good to see that we're getting our tree lightings underway and getting ready for the festive season. So thank you.
Nobody's going to mention about the Santa Claus parades. Fire station in Durham. I believe the firemen are putting on the Durham Santa Claus parade Saturday at noon. Going up Main Street, around and then back to the arena. Sunday at 5 o'clock, Mr. Forrester, will be Newstead's parade and then the tree lighting. Is the tree lighting still down at Noah's Inn or is it up at the park? It's at the community center. They're using that tree. Okay. Yeah, I don't know whether they were doing any of those. So those are two of the Christmas festivities that will be happening this weekend, going forward as well too. Further, Councillor Hutchison.
Maybe just a question or comment. We traditionally put in a float, so I'll maybe defer to our director on that end of it. Do we have a plan, and where are we on float this year?
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor to council, yes, we are putting in a float. It will be designed and built later this week. So keep an eye on your inboxes for details of where to show up and where to be. And we'll be sending out that notification shortly.
Put on your best Santa hat for Saturday to yes. Well, Santa's probably the biggest superhero we know. Councillor Noon, Joyce.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. This for Cody, or sorry, Mr. Hewitt. The parades, and do we also use the same float in the Newstead Parade?
Yes.
Very good. Councillor Hutchison.
Maybe too, it's just worth mentioning, maybe to the general public if nothing else, but we have a couple of days of training coming up. Starting tomorrow in Owen Sound.
Yes.
Yes. 9 o'clock till 4 o'clock at the, what's the Bay Shore? Oh, it's at the Bay Shore, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
To be sure.
Right.
Tomorrow
So
and Thursday, correct?
all council will be there, right?
Hopefully. Weather dependent. The wind may blow us off the road going up Highway 6, but we'll have to take County Road 3 for the rest of us. Okay, yeah, look forward to that. Just like to say that Councillor or Deputy Mayor, County Councillor Hutchison and myself did county training last Thursday and Friday. Friday was a tour of some of the county facilities, a bus toured around and got a little bit of an update for the rest of the county councilors on the Rockwood Terrace long-term care redevelopment, how that's moving along. So we'd be hopeful that we will, county council will be able to start construction, start moving some dirt and gravel stones on the site in 2023 by this summer. Things. So it's still moving along and exciting times, but scary, expensive times. It starts into construction of those types of facilities for sure. But it was moving along, so it was a good training session with the county for myself and the deputy mayor. And yeah, I think that's about all I can say from a county perspective, other than December 6th is the inaugural for county council. When county council members will be sworn in, and a new warden obviously will be voted in at that point in time. And our first meeting will be December the 8th after the inaugural. Interesting, inaugurals always used to be on a Tuesday night, but now they are on, so that takes place, I'm looking to Councillor Deputy Mayor Hutchison, 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I believe it is. I better check my calendar and make sure, but this is 11, yeah.
It's 11.
Yeah, 11 o'clock. So I should show up at 10 o'clock and I'll be on time. Very good, thank you. Okay. Those are a couple of county updates. And Councillor Hutchison, one more.
I just had a question, but I should have caught their director of infrastructure before he left. But given that Rockwood Terrace build will go ahead next year, we'll be looking at putting in a street. I think that'll be one of our budget items coming forward. The extension of South Street, I believe. So I don't know where we are in terms of that and whatnot in the future. And I think there's even some drilling going on down in that area. So maybe we'll get an update when it comes budget time about how that's all happening. But right now we seem to have a lot of students that are cutting across private property to get to the school and from the school to Tim Hortons and back again. So it'd be nice to have a South Street entrance that they could walk on to get to Tim Hortons. So anyways, look forward to that.
Yeah, you are correct on that South Street extension, and I don't know where we're at with the development agreement. How much of that will be the responsibility of West Gray and how much It will be on the whole development, but look forward to moving that project forward, so for sure. Okay. Any other comments? Announcements? Seeing none, closed session. I don't believe we have any need. And certainly no desire to go into closed session, so that's good. So then nothing reporting. With all the business that was scheduled on the agenda, I can declare the meeting adjourned. No, we're done. Very good. Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. And we will be joined back in the next meeting, December 20th. Will be our next. Yes, yeah, we certainly have 2 training sessions for West Grey Council exclusive, December 7th and December the 14th. But very good. Enjoy the day, rest of council. Thank you very much.